And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to another wonderful Wednesday and another edition of our live cruise chat for Canadians. I'm your host this week, the captain of fun, Matt Houpy. Joining me this evening, we have Karen Raymond, we have Luke Morin, and then we also have behind the scenes, Linda, as always, is steering the ship for us and keeping us on course. So with that, as you can see this week, our topics of conversation are going to be Hawaii, which is just one of those popular destinations that everybody talks about and wants to go to or has been to and raves about. And so we have Karen talking about Hawaii today. And as well, we have Luke talking about repositioning cruises. So those are our topics for this evening. So hopefully you're all excited about that. So just to recap how we run these, be sure that when you're watching our episodes that you are commenting with your name and where you're joining us from so that we can get you in that draw at the end. We always have some fantastic vacations for Canadian swag that we like to give away at the end of every episode. So be sure that you comment because that's your entry to get into the draw. So who are we? Well, we are all cruise specialists that work remotely for Vacations for Canadians. What we do, we look after you from door to door. So primarily, we are helping you out with your cruise vacations. Regardless of the line, we service almost every one of them. But in addition to cruises, we can also help you out with some of those other travel necessities, whether it be your transfers, your flights, your hotel accommodations, pre or post cruise excursions, you name it. We've got it on our website and we can offer it to you. So we've gone over the introductions already and we've covered the destination highlights. What we will do is if you have any questions about any of the conversations that we're having, whether it be Hawaii or the repositioning cruises, fire them in as we're going along. We will flag them. Linda will work diligently behind the scenes and flag all of those questions for us. And then when we get to the end, we will answer all of those questions for you. So with that, let's get started. And first off, we're going to be kicking off with Karen talking about Hawaii. Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to everybody. I was quite excited when we did the vote this week and we learned that Hawaii was the topic that people the destination topic people were interested in learning about, because Hawaii is an incredible, incredible place to visit. I've had the pleasure of being there 4 times, going 4 times, twice on a cruise, and then twice doing some land adventures. So lots of background on Hawaii, and certainly can share with you some of my photos, some of my experiences, and some tips along the way that would make a Hawaiian vacation quite significantly amazing as it is. So I thought this quote kind of started us off really nicely, which is coming into Hawaii is like going from black and white to color. And, I before going to Hawaii, I had been able to go to some of the Caribbean islands, and I thought, wow, is it any different? And, that's a question that sometimes people ask. I've been to Aruba, I've been to all kinds of beautiful, beautiful islands. What makes Hawaii so special? And this quote really does summarize that it is a very special place indeed. It's the people, it's the culture, it's the landscape, it's the whole package. So happy to share that with you this evening. So, the first thing to think about is, when do you want to visit Hawaii? And I was there in May. I was there in the summertime. I was also there in February. And I found that the best time is kind of the shoulder season. So your spring and your fall. And one of the big reasons for that is because that picture that's on the top left-hand side of the screen is those whales. So we were literally, sunbathing, watching, before we were leaving port. And all of a sudden, everybody's rushing over to one side of the ship and they're looking out, and there was a whole slew of whales. I don't know what the proper term is for a lot of whales, but there's a lot of them. And they were just frolicking and playing, and they followed our ship for quite some time. And then there's some dolphins that joined us a little while later. So, it was kind of that whale watching experience that you didn't have to pay for. It's just part of the because you're in Hawaii. So that springtime and the fall, that's when they're heading to and from their destination. So a great, great time to go. The other reason I love spring so much is because the flowers were starting to really take hold. So much like here, when everything's waking up, our trip in February was a little bit less colorful in that respect. The flowers weren't in bloom just yet, even though it's beautiful season round, a whole year round. The plumeria flowers, which is that other photo that's there on the bottom right, is they were all in full bloom in May. So I would really recommend that those are the times that you'd want to think about going to Hawaii. Summertime is beautiful, nice and hot. I feel like that big summer sunshine as well. So when I hear that a client is thinking about going to Hawaii, there's a couple of questions that we need to ask you because it will really help us to funnel down this big roster of cruises that we would want to share with you and make sure it's the right one. And we ask these questions because it does really influence what we present back to you to make sure that it's the right vacation for you. So the first question I would ask is, how much of Hawaii do you want to see? And I'll get to why that's relevant in just a short minute. And how long do you want to cruise? Because that's really going to help us to identify what the best sailing is for you, which cruise line is going to meet your needs and the expectations you have over Hawaii. So essentially, you have two options when it comes to the different types of sailing. So you have option A, which is to sail around Hawaii. So that's all the Hawaiian Islands. It focuses its journey entirely in Hawaii. So that is option A, where you're going to spend your 7 days just going from island to island to island, not even any sea days, it just hops from island to island because they're quite close together. Or the second option is option B, and that is sailing to or from Hawaii. So that's a bit interesting as well, because a lot of our sailings are coming from Vancouver, or they're coming from Seattle, or even LA, and they're doing a journey to Hawaii, which is a one-way journey as opposed to going around the island. So it's a bit of a different adventure because, of course, if you're sailing to Hawaii, the duration is a little bit longer because it takes 5 days to get there by boat. So if you're looking for a quick week, that eliminates a lot of the different options as opposed to what we can offer you for a 7-day sailing. So depending upon what you say, that's going to help us to determine what cruise line is best suited for you. So if you want to sail around Hawaii and you've got 7 days that you want to actually be on this cruise, Norwegian Cruise Line is the option for you. And that is because they sail around the year round, 7 days on the, every weekend they're heading out on the Pride of America. That particular cruise is a ship is the Pride of Aloha, which is what it was when I was sailing on it. But they've got Pride of America that's stationed in Hawaii and doesn't leave Hawaii. So if you want to go in September, you want to go in December, you want to go in February, and you want to go for 7 days in Hawaii, you're going to get a round trip journey from Oahu all the way around to the islands and back again. So if you're looking for something that really sails a lot of Hawaii, this is a great option for you because it doesn't leave that area. And the reason it doesn't have to leave is because of the way that it's flagged, which we'll talk about in a moment. The other cruise lines, so Hawaii is a very popular destination. The other cruise lines will get there as well, but they're going to take, like I said, a couple of days to get there. And it's a bit of a milk run because you're starting from the States and you might be going to a Canadian port, and then you're going to head over to Hawaii, and then you're going to end in Oahu. So in some cases, those journeys, while they're a little bit longer, they don't see as much of Hawaii because sometimes they're just doing a drive-by, like a scenic cruising, and then they would stop at maybe one island, maybe 2 islands, and then ending in Oahu. So this is really awesome if you're looking to save yourself a flight because you can enjoy that cruise for maybe 9 days and get a bit of a snapshot of Hawaii as well. And then from there, what you can do is maybe do some land travel. So the great thing about Hawaii is they have flights that kind of work like our buses do. So you can hop to the airport and take a little hopper flight to any of the islands in Hawaii and get there in maybe an hour, less than an hour in some cases, and then you can explore further. But if you're looking to do the cruise, kind of your sail around or sail to or from are your two main options. So if we present you some different cruise lines, with the itineraries, this is going to be a very, very big dictator as to which ones we're recommending for you. So you might be wondering, why don't more cruise lines stay around the Hawaiian Islands? It seems like such a great idea, doesn't it? Hawaii is a beautiful destination. We get a lot of requests for it. Lots of people wanting to sail there. But why do they not stay there if it's such an amazing place? Well, the answer is really kind of logistics, and law. So Norwegian Cruise Line has the only ship in the world that's flagged by an American, flagged American. And what that means is they don't have to leave the United States. So when you think about the other ships that are flagged maybe in Barbados, Bahamas, all sorts of different places, in Mediterranean, they actually have to go between 2 countries. So what that means is if they're leaving in the States, let's say they're leaving out of Los Angeles, leaving out of Seattle, they have to go to a Canadian port before they end up in Hawaii. They cannot literally go directly to Hawaii. Whereas Norwegian Cruise Line with the American flagship, they can stay in the United States. So they can stay in those Hawaiian Islands. It makes a big difference in those itineraries because, again, if you think about other cruises you might have done, if you do, say, out east, you might have left out of Halifax and you end up in Boston. Well, you've got your 2 countries covered. You always have to have those two two spots in your trip. If you go to Alaska, you might start in Seattle, but you stop off in Victoria. And there's a reason for that as well. So it's the same type of concept here. So Norwegian does have a bit of a unique itinerary as a result of it. They can stay within the Hawaiian Islands, and they do. They leave every Saturday from Oahu, and they do their same journey every week. So thinking about where you could go when you're in Hawaii. So of course, there's the main islands. There's Oahu, which is where Waikiki Beach is. That's Honolulu. It's the kind of what you might think about when you're thinking of Hawaii. And then of course, there's Kauai, Maui, and the Big Island are the other ones that are very popular to hit. So I'll talk a little bit about each of them because they each have their own vibe and their own flavor. We'll start with Oahu. Now, Oahu is a place where most of your cruises are going to start or end. So as you can see, it's called the gathering place, and that's probably because that's where the international airlines are coming into. That's their airport, their main airport. And Waikiki definitely has a different vibe. Oahu has a different vibe than the other islands. They all have their own unique kind of culture and climate. This one's called the gathering place, and as you can see in the bottom picture there, that's Diamond Head and Waikiki Beach. So definitely a beautiful place to start your trip or end it, depending upon which way you're going. So the first pro tip I can share with you is day one of your cruise should not be day one of your vacation. Now that goes with any cruise because of course we never recommend that you're flying in the same day you're sailing because you never know what kinds of issues you may have with the airlines. However, thinking about Hawaii, if you're jumping onto a ship in Oahu and you're heading on your cruise vacation like I did the very first time that I was sailing because logistically I had no option. It was my honeymoon. We had to get there and whatnot. Board that ship. We didn't actually experience that first port of call, which was Oahu. So when we came home, we thought, wow, we really missed out on a few really key things. So it's always a good idea to give yourself maybe a couple of days to really explore and see that first port of call, especially important in Hawaii. So Honolulu is just magical. It is kind of the most built up of the islands that you'd have. It's one of the oldest ones. And of course, as you can see here, there's Diamond Head in the background, and you can see all those skyscraper type hotels. Now that is not typical of Hawaii, but it is typical of Honolulu and Waikiki Beach. So this beach is dynamite. You'll see surfers, you'll see paddleboarders, you'll see swimmers, and you'll see a lineup of those hotels that kind of ring all the way up to Diamond Head. And you can literally walk this beach for miles. It is gorgeous. But again, if you're landing on your plane in Oahu and then jumping on your cruise ship, you're not able to experience and explore this. So I do encourage you to take that extra day or two, either before or after your cruise, to make sure you can really take advantage. And then another stop that you would miss out on would be the USS Arizona Memorial. So this, of course, is Pearl Harbor. And I'm telling you, this is really an incredible, incredible experience. So they actually boat you out to the memorial, which is the white building that's over top of the hull of the sunken ship. So you are literally looking out those windows, looking down, and you see the smokestack and you see the outline of the ship. It is like nothing I've ever seen before. It is absolutely a must go to when you're there. And again, not possible if you're just jumping from your plane over to your cruise ship. So definitely make a trip out. It's a really moving and memorable afternoon. It's a couple of hours to spend there, but there's so much to see and do. There's a Dole plantation where they harvest their pineapples, which is really, really cool, as well as the surfers. So the North Shore is where the surfers hang out. That's where you go to see them catch their waves and practice. It is just unbelievable to really get that Hawaiian spirit through watching others through there. And then another island that you would visit would be Kauai. And oftentimes this could be, if you're on the Norwegian cruise line, you're going to be there for overnight as well. So that's a great opportunity for you to really get in and explore. Now, Kauai is called the Garden Island because it's very lush. There's lots of rain, but the rain doesn't last. So it's kind of like that's a climate where the wind comes up over the mountain top, and then it dumps a bit of rain, and then it clears out. And that happens pretty much every day. But the great thing is you're on an island and you can actually drive away from it. You can get away from it very, very quickly, and it's not going to last. But it is resulting from this beautiful greenery that you see, the waterfalls. It's very, very lush. The flowers, the landscape is quite substantial. So a very different feel than what you'd have in Waikiki, which is why it's really cool to explore by a cruise. Now, this is a place where you'd want to do a helicopter ride. So a lot of Hawaiian islands, they do offer them. I loved doing the helicopter ride in Kauai. This obviously is a photo not of our particular helicopter, but it was a magical experience. They go into the valleys, they take you along the Kapali coast, which is one area you'd probably also sail to. It's kind of a scenic sailing type of thing, but seeing it from that vantage point is just remarkable. And as magic happens, where we were kind of going around the coast, then all of a sudden a rainbow appears, a beautiful, beautiful rainbow, and right on cue, the pilot's playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which was just that kind of moment where you just go, oh, it's just like that core memory that never is going to leave you. And every time I hear that song, it takes me right back to this. So it's a beautiful place to visit by sea. It's a beautiful place to visit by land and also by helicopter. There's zip lining there. Anything you'd like to do outdoors, this is the place to do it. And then we would move over to Maui. And Maui, I love this picture because it reminds me very much of that. If you notice the look of that, the outline of Maui, it looks like a person. Do you see that with the person's head kind of facing down in their body as if they're kneeling? That's how you know where you're in Maui when you look at a map. And Maui is the Valley Isle. So they've got all kinds of nooks and crannies and probably some memorable places that you might recognize in a few moments. But a skill testing question for you all. What has 620 hairpin turns, 59 bridges, and travels through rainforests, waterfalls, and dramatic seascapes? Any guesses? I'm sure you've heard of it before. It's the Road to Hana. The Road to Hana is exactly that. Now, I didn't count, but I've got the t-shirt that says so. And it is literally the windy kind of road that is just beautiful in every direction you look. Now, when we were on our cruise, we rented a car. And we grabbed that map, and we actually got a CD from Kmart, which was available at that time. And we popped in the CD in our Jeep, and away we went on this Road to Hana. And what this CD did was it actually gave us all the landmarks of places to stop and what you're looking at. So it was kind of as you're driving, it says, hey, look here, here's the waterfall of whatever. Here's a good place to stop for your, for photographs or for a picnic. And it was absolutely beautiful. So, we did get a little bit of rain. And again, like Hawaii, it can come and go. But if you notice the picture of our feet at the bottom there, that was on one of our hikes. It wasn't a strenuous hike, but we were walking through mud. We were walking through little rivery things and whatnot. And it was such a fun day. We packed a picnic lunch and away we went. So absolutely something you can do on your own. I'm certain that they offer lots of trips through the cruise lines as well, but you can just rent a vehicle and do it yourself, which is actually my next pro tip is rent that car. We did it in Kauai, we did it in Maui, we did it in a few different places because it gave us that option to really just explore and get off the beaten path. And the great thing about Hawaii is as simple as driving in North America. The roads are paved, the roads are easy, the road signs are the same, you're on the same side of the road, and you're on an island, so you can't get lost. I mean, which direction is the sea, which direction is the volcano or the mountain? You really can't goof up. So you just keep going and eventually you get to home where you want to be. And that's the beauty of being able to spend a full day there, especially in Kauai, where you have an overnight. You don't have to rush back to the cruise ship to, for dinner or anything. You can just spend as much time as you want to. And having that car rented ready, we did that before we left. It was all ready to go, and a terrific way to explore on our own. Grab a road map and away you go. So, Maui is a beautiful, beautiful place. Again, surfing. One thing we did do is we just kind of looked where locals were hanging out, and we found some surfers that were practicing. They weren't practicing. They were probably professionals. But it was unbelievable to see them swimming out in this water that I wouldn't even probably put my feet into because it looked dangerous to me. Even though I'm a swimmer, but I found it was just incredible just to stand there and watch them and just they're doing their tricks and they're, catching the waves and celebrating, all their stunts and whatnot. It was absolutely remarkable and possibly one of the best areas for sunsets in the places I've been to. Beautiful spot. And then there is the Big Island. So the Big Island is one of the newest islands. By new, it's not new, but it's new, but it's and it's also the largest island. So hence the name. We rented a car here as well, and we went to Volcanoes National Park. The interesting thing about Volcanoes National Park is that when you arrive, you go and you have a little chat with the park ranger. And the park ranger gives you a bit of a map, tells you where to go, some tips and tricks. And when we were there, it was they were talking about the volcanic movement and whatnot, what they're watching. And I thought to myself, well, we're in Hawaii. This happens all the time. And we're always watching for stuff. And there's always tremors and whatnot. And they're actually watching very carefully to find out how frequently those tremors happen, how close together they are, and of course, how significant they are. So um, the interesting thing is they were talking about, we are seeing a lot of volcanic activity and whatnot. And just, it wasn't a warning or a risk that we were taking, but they were just mentioning that it was there. So we went on our merry way and we saw these lava flows. And I mean, it looks just exactly like you're in Mars because it's from, you go from lush in some parts, but then all of a sudden where the lava has flown, it's taken out all the greenery. It goes right over the roads in some cases. And you've got these fields of just cooled off, lava, I guess, the lava rock. And in some cases, the way that the ocean kind of beats at it wears it down differently. It's quite interesting. But then later that day, didn't we find out that they were starting to evacuate people and they were asking people to watch for the next step, which would be moving away from certain parts of the island because they did actually have an eruption that was brewing and it did start to spew a little bit of lava. So it was a little bit more real than we kind of took notice of. We thought it was just, this part of being in Hawaii, but apparently there was really something to see. So the cool thing is, this is a shot of the crater, and you can see this is where at nighttime, if you were in a helicopter, you could actually see where the red is bubbling up the lava. We couldn't witness that with our, in the daylight, but you could see where the smoke or whatever it would be is coming up. So, we're watching it from the daylight. And then, of course, the nighttime they show on the news and it's starting to bubble and get a little more angry. And the next thing you know, it starts to spit up and away you go. You've got an eruption. So that's the Big Island fun. And one of the most active islands that are still there. So some of them are dormant or dead. And this particular one is still living, so to speak. So it does grow as the eruptions take place. So while you're in Hawaii, you can do anything you want to do. So I talked about some road tripping. I talked about some, different things you can visit, some memorials and whatnot. We also did some snorkeling and saw the biggest turtles I've ever seen in my entire life. These things were just massive and they looked so docile. I felt like I was at Disneyland where you see Crush kind of doing their little turtle talk. It was really, really something. And of course, a luau, if you can, definitely go and visit a luau. It is their whole performance where they do the pig roast and they share their culture and they do their dancing and singing. It is really something amazing. In fact, on one of our road trips, we took a stop at a little souvenir shop. And then next thing you know, we looked up a hill where there was like a school and we saw all the school children practicing their hula dancing, which is really cool. So lots of fun and so different from what we would see here. So that is the spiel on Hawaii, according to my experience. A quote to leave you with here is: the only good thing about leaving Hawaii is that you really appreciate when you return. And it is absolutely a place you'd want to return to again and again. It is a special place and is very different. The culture, like I said, is very unique and very strong. They're very proud people of their land and how they take care of their land and what they have to offer. And as well as, just a beautiful place to visit, very safe, easy to navigate, a wonderful, wonderful trip. So if you're thinking about Hawaii, I do invite you to reach out to us. We would be happy to share the itineraries. Again, thinking about, do you want to just circle around the islands, or are you looking for maybe a kind of a more luxurious way to avoid a flight and get there through the 5-day plus sailing, and then explore once you're there? But I do recommend that you spend as much time as you possibly can, either before or after your cruise, to really make it an incredible vacation, because it really is one to remember. So as I say in Hawaii, mahalo, which means thank you, and I'll pass it over to Luke.
Thank you, Karen. My parents actually celebrated their 50th anniversary last year and did a Hawaiian cruise with Celebrity.
Nice.
And then my in-laws, who got married 2 weeks before my parents, also celebrated their 50th anniversary and did a Hawaiian cruise on the Ovation of the Seas. So they literally chased each other on itineraries, doing a Hawaiian cruise along the same way.
Nice.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss real quick about obviously the devastation of the forest fires and everything that happened last year with Hawaii, and how that had such an impact on tourism and everything that happened in Hawaii, and how it really kind of reshaped the landscape for Hawaii and how they can handle their tourism. And we had a flood of calls and concerns and emails and social media just blowing up with how the cruise lines were going to handle that. And I think not only have they done a fantastic job, but they have really gotten on board with donating a lot of funds for the restoration of Hawaii and just bringing that tourism back to life, because that is such a main portion of their economy. And so for those that are interested in traveling to Hawaii, just keep in mind that by going to visit this amazing destination, you are also part of the solution when it comes to reviving that economy, when it comes to tourism in Hawaii. So I'm so happy that we're doing this one. I haven't had the fortune of going myself, but having lived vicariously through my parents and their travel last year, it's definitely on our bucket list, as I can see in the comments that it is for other people as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we discuss that, because even now there are some fires that are kind of popping up in little spots in Hawaii. So it's always something that we have to monitor, because obviously it can impact those, because September is that shoulder season when you were talking about the Hawaii season with kind of April, May, and then that September, October time. These are those shoulder seasons when we have people going to Hawaii right now. So it's obviously something that we continue to monitor. But
yeah, I on purpose didn't put any Lahaina pictures in there because it hurt my heart to look at them. So, when that was going on, we had just been there not too far before that actually happened, and we had eaten at the restaurants that were devastated. We had taken pictures of the banyan tree that was still, it did survive, thankfully, which is amazing. But the art galleries where people had their art, and they lost so much that it really, if you've been there and you've experienced it as well, it's nothing short of heartbreaking. So absolutely, it's hopeful that they're able to rebuild and to make it stronger and better, so that it protects them in the future.
Yeah, and it was really nice to see NCL were kind of the first ones who put it out there, because they have that footprint constantly in Hawaii. They were the first ones to say that they were restarting their Hawaiian cruises, and that a big portion of why they wanted to get right back into it was because they were going to be donating a lot of funds to help with the restoration projects that were going on in Hawaii.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that happy transition, we're going to move over to repositioning, and we'll move on from Hawaii. Although that is really part of that repositioning, is when you take a cruise going over to Hawaii, that sometimes that is a repositioning to go elsewhere. So with that, we'll segue over to Luke to discuss repositioning cruises.
Thanks, Matt and Karen. Thanks for an amazing experience with Hawaii and sharing that with us. It's definitely now on my bucket list. And I'm not going to wait till my 50th anniversary to do that, because, that's years ahead. So anyways, needless to say, tonight I'm going to talk to you guys about repositioning cruises. So I'll just move on in. Okay, so what we're going to cover tonight is kind of define the difference between a closed and an open loop cruise, which will lead into what is a repositioning cruise. We're going to take a deep dive into repositioning cruise, a little more details around it. What do I do while I'm on a repositioning cruise? You spend X amount of days at sea. Obviously, I'll share some different options, and of course, as I normally do, in my summary, is I provide one or two cruise tips at the end of my my segment. Open versus closed loop. Here, what we have is a closed loop. So a closed loop is basically the port that you sail out of is the port you sail into. And this is very typical of the majority of cruises around the world, whether you're in Europe, you're in the Caribbean, you're on the West Coast, East Coast. Most cruises are closed loop. The other thing with closed loops is, the variety of the different cruises are pretty common across different cruise lines. An open loop, this basically opens the door to repositioning cruises. Repositioning cruise, the definition of repositioning cruise is basically it's a cruise that leaves one port or one home port and heads to a different home port where they'll reside for the season, for an extended period of time or so. So when that ship goes from one home port to the other, that is considered a repositioning cruise. But also the term used is an open loop. So you're sail from one port and you disembark from a different one. So, what types of repositioning cruises are there? Repositioning cruises are basically, as I just stated, they're cruises that go from one port to the other, and they're changing their home port. Some people may also know the terminology around repositioning cruises as transatlantic, transpacific, transcanal. When a ship goes from one area to the other, they usually cross various seas or oceans, and they're basically named accordingly. Let's take a deep dive. Pros and cons of repositioning cruises or transatlantic or transpacific and so on is one, they're typically a little cheaper from a cost perspective per day, because the fact that you're spending a little more time at sea. That could be considered a con, but also a pro, depending on how you want to look at it. And because there's no extended port fees, because the more ports you visit, the more port fees a cruise line has to pay for, which they transfers that cost onto the cost of a cruise. Repositioning cruises, because you spend a little more time at sea, they're more relaxing. It's time to de-stress. You don't feel like you're rushed to get up the next morning to run to go have breakfast and fight the traffic in the buffets and so on, so that you can line up to get off the ship, to go to port, to come back and do it over and over again, depending on how many ports your cruise will have. There's another advantage. The advantage is you can actually take the time to experience what the ship has to offer. Because in my experience, I've gone on the ship, we're busy with, socializing with friends. And then we're at one port, the next port, like we just did an 11-night British Isles cruise, and we had 8 ports. Well, we only had really 3 days at sea. So we got off the ship, and then we got off the ship and we're thinking, wait a second, we didn't do this, we didn't do that, and so on. So repositioning cruises, transatlantics, allow you that time to experience what the ship has to offer, using the spa, using the gym, using the different nightclubs, the different events that are being offered in the theater and so on. Another benefit of a transatlantic or a repositioning cruise is sometimes you can actually do a back-to-back. So if you're in the Caribbean and you're doing a closed loop cruise, you're basically, if you were to do a back-to-back, usually, you're on the same cruise, every week, or you're doing an Eastern, then a Western, and then an Eastern, then a Western. In this case, maybe tying into what Matt said just at the end there, and with Karen's experience with Hawaii, an example, you'll have a cruise that will sail from Vancouver to Alaska. And then once it's done its season, it'll do a Trans-Pacific, or it'll do a Canada to Hawaii. So it'll do a repositioning from Canada to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii to Australia, where it will have a new home port for the season. So there you could actually, do a cruise to Hawaii, a cruise to Alaska, a cruise to Hawaii, and then sail into Alaska. And you could actually do an Australia, and then do an Australia cruise. So there you could actually tie like 4 back-to-backs. That would be amazing if ever I got the chance to do that. But that's a benefit of these repositioning cruises. Let's talk about a few cons. Well, a few cons: many days at sea. But again, that could be deemed as a benefit as well, because you have more relaxing days, more days to chill out and relax. But some of our clients prefer the busy. They take a cruise to be able to experience as much as they can You know, like when you go to Europe, they're okay with doing 6 or 7 ports on the 7-day cruise or a 10-day cruise because they want to experience the most they can. But in the same token, those that don't like a lot of sea days could be considered a con. Repositioning crews, well, they're more limited in availability because they are either seasonal or they're either in the spring, they're in the fall, they're at various times of the year, and it's basically you do one and it's over. It's not like it keeps going back and forth because repositioning cruise is basically going from one new home port to an old home port to a new one. Another con is you have to fly into one port, board the ship, cruise to your next destination or new home port, and then you have to find a flight out of there. So you're basically doing a one-way flight to embark on the ship, and then you're taking a different flight to get from the ship to home. And another con to those that like to do a lot cruises that have a lot of ports is that usually these transatlantic, trans-Pacific repositioning cruises, they're very limited in terms of the ports that they see or they stop at. So you may have one that leaves New Jersey, stops in the Azores, maybe a stop in Spain or Greece, and then it home ports in Hamilton, in Southampton, for instance. But you spend 10 or 12 or 14 days on the ship. So those are the pros and cons that I wanted to share. Now, what is there to do? Well, as I said earlier, one of the best things here is to take advantage of what the ship has to offer while you're on the ship. I shared a couple of pictures here to kind of set the mood in terms of, you know, you spend some time enjoying the sun, enjoying the weather, making new friends, you know, maybe doing a bar crawl or a meet and greet and joining some activities on the ship. Taking advantage of what the ship has to offer. If they're ships like the Icon of the Seas, well, you could be on the ship for an extended period of time and enjoy everything that it has to offer. Also, another thing to take advantage of while you're on a repositioning cruise is the entertainment. I've been on a cruise where I saw a show, and then the next night there was 2 shows I wanted to watch, but they only played once during the cruise each, and I missed one of them. In this case, there's a better opportunity to be able to see the different entertainment acts, theaters, comedy, and online games that they usually play, like Love and Marriage and so on and so on. The other thing too is with a repositioning cruise is obviously the scenery of the ocean. If you get an ocean view balcony, my wife is in heaven when we basically cruise because she could spend all day sitting on the balcony just enjoying the sound of the waves. Well, being on a long cruise like that, you have that opportunity. I talked a little bit earlier on the back-to-back. These repositioning cruises are amazing to tie on a back-to-back either prior to your repositioning cruise or after. And the example I used, you take a cruise to Alaska, and then you take the next one from Alaska to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii to Australia, and you could even tag on a fourth one to do a cruise of Australia to take advantage of all of those different ports. But transatlantic, trans-Pacific, repositioning cruise in general are amazing to experience that whole back-to-back experience. Well, that's all I had for repositioning cruises. I hope that I shared enough information to give you all a better understanding of transatlantic and trans-Pacifics and repositioning cruises, but also to kind of give you ideas that you, even though there's pros and cons, you can always benefit from taking advantage of sea days to relax and so on. And the cruise tip for today is Apple AirTags. I use Apple AirTags in everything I own. I put one in each of our backpacks. We put some in our suitcases, and we know where our luggage is. And usually, when we get on the ship in after we board, we can actually track on. Oh, look, our bags are close to getting to our room, because then we know that our room, our bags are there. So AirTags can have a huge benefit when cruising or traveling in general. But in this case, we use them every time we cruise. So that's it for me on repositioning cruises, and I'll hand it back to Matt.
All right. Thanks a lot, Luke. I feel like I need to bring some of those Apple AirTags just to hook them up to my kids so that when they're wandering around the ship, I can try to figure out where they are. That's maybe the thing that I really love about Princess with their medallion service is I can just use those medallions and figure out where the heck the kids are when they're wandering around the ship. Maybe I just need to bring AirTags with me. And once we know where the luggage is, we'll just take them off the suitcases and put them on the kids. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of options when it comes to repositioning cruises. The transatlantics have the European cruising season that starts, in March and April. That's when those transatlantics will happen, and all those ships reposition over to the UK side. And then we start getting into those Mediterranean cruises, those Northern Europe cruises, those Iceland intensive kind of voyages that are out there. There's definitely some real opportunities that you can combine those and just extend that sailing. So you still get one or two ports. But for some people, especially if they have mobility issues, they really love the ship life and just being able to enjoy everything that's on board when it comes to the amazing dining and service and entertainment that's offered. And at the same time, not have to worry about their mobility concerns with getting off the ship with a lot of port intensive sailing. So they can still have a real wonderful cruise experience without, having to have all the hardships of their mobility issues. So I know just from speaking with a few clients just recently that we booked on a transatlantic, they were actually asking for the fewer ports, the better, because that way they could just have a nice long sailing where they could really enjoy the ship. So we were able to make that happen for them. But yeah, if you can tag on another one when you get on the end and get one of those back-to-back sailings, especially with some of the cruise lines that offer a discount when you do a back-to-back, that's obviously a great thing to take advantage of as well. Or just racking up those loyalty points with whatever cruise line you're sailing with.
Yeah, it's a great way to get that loyalty in.
Yeah. And if you are looking at back-to-backs, just make sure that you bring it to your travel advisor's attention, because we are going to work as hard as we can to try and keep you in that same stateroom for both legs of that back-to-back. Now, if that can't happen, the porters or the room stewards are amazing at being able to transfer a lot of your belongings. I mean, obviously, there's some things that you're going to need to pack up, and I think you rather would prefer to pack yourself. But for a lot of like your closet stuff, they will literally just take whatever you have hung up in your closet and take it to your new room and hang it into your closet in your new stateroom. So while we will do our best to keep you in the same stateroom for both ends of that back-to-back, sometimes that just isn't the case, but we do what we can to help that out. But make sure to bring it to our attention, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen for you. All right, so I've seen we've had some questions that were flagged along the way here. So I'm Linda, do you want to read them off, and then we'll just see who can tackle these?
Sure. So the first one comes from Laura, and she asks, what month in spring is best for traveling to Hawaii?
So my favorite time was May. So we traveled, the first time was late May. The flowers were in full bloom. The whales were out playing. Everything was nice and fresh. I would say that would be my preferred time. It was beautiful and warm, but it wasn't scorching hot like it would be in the summertime. I don't think you can go wrong, but I think that's, if I was to go at any time during the year, that's when I would pick.
Yeah, and a lot of those cruise lines as well, that is right when that shoulder season happens. That's that sweet spot. So they know that when they're going in, that if we only have a narrow window to sail in Hawaii, we're going to hit that April, May timeframe, because that's the sweet spot to hit with Hawaii.
Okay, so the next
Oh
one
my.
comes from Catherine. Yeah, it's a long one, so I'm going to just synopsize it. So, scheduled on Celebrity Edge next May, they changed the itinerary due to the fires, and they're looking for some excursions on this island on Kona.
Kona. So, I mean, Kona is a beautiful, beautiful place. You probably have heard of Kona coffee. One thing you can do is you can go visit where they harvest the coffee beans. So that's actually quite an interesting little process that they take, and you can do a little tour and buy the world famous coffee. If you do, it is a wonderful treat to bring back home. Make sure you look for the 100% Kona coffee because they have a lot of different blends. But if you want the real McCoy, you want to check that label really carefully. You can also go snorkeling. That's a wonderful thing to do in that area because there's lots of things to see under the water line. So that would be another recommendation. There's lots of little shops and wandering you can do. It's definitely a place where you can spend a good amount of time. I would recommend taking a look at what the tours are that the ship is offering to give you some inspiration, maybe some ideas, and then decide what makes sense from there. You can even do, if you want to go big, you could do a helicopter ride there. It would be beautiful. You can do, any of the things that any of the islands would do. But I would say, maybe the coffee tour might be one I'd consider. It's kind of different for that area.
Amazing. All right, next question is from Betty, and she asked, do they still have the shrimp shacks? Ooh, that's a tongue twister. By the water, those are the best.
Yes, they do. They have all kinds of shacks by the water, shacks. It is a tongue twister. To practice that one. Yes, absolutely. Where you can just grab it, like kind of like a little fresh caught food trucks, grill them up, and away you go. You can make them into like a little sandwich or whatnot. But the one thing that I really remember doing a lot of, and that's just grabbing market stuff. So they have what they call apple bananas there. And if you've been to Hawaii, you'd recognize those. They're these little itty bitty bananas, and they are so delicious and sweet. They have a whole different flavor on there. Or just grabbing some rambutan fruit, which if you've seen that before, it's probably one of the gnarliest looking fruits you can eat, but it is delicious if you can get past what it looks like. Kind of looks like an eyeball a little bit. It's pretty gross, but it is delicious. So grab any of those market foods, those fresh caught fish, and away you go. It's a great way to spend an afternoon and grab a little snack.
That sounds delicious. I'm hungry now.
Now, do they remember the show Hawaii 5-0 used to have that shack along the beach? What are those fish trucks or whatever? I wonder if it's actually a real thing or is just a prop for the show.
It's hard to say. They film a lot of movies there. Actually, there's a lot of a lot of action films that were filmed there. A lot of TV shows were filmed in Hawaii, different spots in Kauai. So it could very well be a real thing, Luke. I'm not sure.
All right, our next question comes from Tanya, and she says, seasickness on these long cruises. I'm prone to it, believe it or not, as I've done over 20, but never a repositioning one. So anybody want to take that question, or anybody or all of you?
I can take a stab at it. And then seasickness on a transatlantic or repositioning cruise, it all depends on weather patterns. It all depends on the size of ship that you're on. Obviously, the newer ships have a better way of being able to stabilize themselves in rough seas. I was just in, and I know it was a British Isles cruise. We actually went around the island or around the UK, and the water was the calmest I've ever experienced in my life, regardless of where it is. But then I've actually done a Hawaii cruise, which was borderline brutal, but seasickness is one of those things that we all handle it differently. We're all sensitive to it in a different format. If you cruise normally, and if you've done 20 cruises, you've experienced rough waters and calm waters. I wouldn't see transatlantic or repositioning cruise or even a trans-Pacific any differently. But I would just come prepared with the proper medication and you'll be fine.
Now, what I will say is from talking to my parents and talking to my in-laws who both experienced that sailing going from Vancouver over to Hawaii, both of them experience very rough waters. And that seems to be a common topic of conversation when we cross the Pacific and we're heading over to Hawaii, that there are some pretty rough waters in trying to make your way over to Hawaii. So any of those little, witches remedies of like eating green apples or eating ginger is not going to help you with those rough waters. But there's obviously all kinds of patches that are out there that you can order off of Amazon that people wear for motion sickness. Even some of the medical team, especially the acupuncture specialists that are on the ship, there is actually acupuncture remedies for motion sickness. So sometimes when there's people that are really struggling with motion sickness who end up in the medical bay, the acupuncture specialist will come down and give them treatments just to try and help calm the effects of the motion sickness that's going on. But yeah, definitely when you're doing those repositioning ones, when you're on longer stints across the ocean and you're further away from land, you feel the effects a lot more. And so if that's something that impacts you, then definitely pack accordingly.
Karen, anything to add on that?
No, I think, that's, you just plan ahead and hope for the best, because there's, you can be in what's notoriously a calm area and you can get hit by it, even if it's not a transatlantic or transpacific. So, yeah, you just kind of hope for the smooth sailing, and just if not, then maybe take yourself a grab ball and go for a nap.
Yeah, and this actually ties into a previous presentation that we did where Luke talked about room cabins and the locations on the ships when we're talking about what deck you're on and what section of the ship you're in. You think of it in a pendulum or a fulcrum of where you want to be in the ship. If you're in the middle, that's where you have the least amount of angle as the ship rocks. And same with it when it's going side to side. If you're more towards the middle of the ship, you have less of that movement. So the lower the deck, the more centralized you are, the less impact you have on those movements in the ship. So that's something that if you have those kind of issues when you're making a reservation with us, just specify that you would like a cabin location that's in that area, and we will find the cabin category that best fits that so that we can quote you properly on the room category that's going to best help you with that kind of situation.
Great advice. Thanks, Matt. And thanks, Luke, who brought that to one of our previous chats. All right. So next, it's sort of a comment question, I guess. Maybe you guys have some tips. So Brian says, packing can be an issue when a cruise repositions from warmer climates to a cooler one, or vice versa. So anybody have any tips or tricks?
A repositioning cruise, I guess it depends on the repositioning cruise itself. And it also depends on the time of year too. If you're taking a repositioning cruise, let's say from Europe to the East Coast of the U.S. in the fall, for the Caribbean season, the waters are warmer, and so the air temperature will feel a little warmer coming back into maybe a colder climate or a cooler climate. Versus, if you're doing a spring one where you're getting just out of the winter and you're heading from the East Coast to say to a Mediterranean or European port, you may leave in cooler weather and head towards some warmer weather. I would see this no different than packing to go to Alaska. To take an Alaskan cruise, because you sail out of Seattle, you sail out of Vancouver, it's warm weather, it's in the 20s, 30 degrees, and then you head up to Alaska and it's in the low teens, and you just pack accordingly. Sweaters, jackets, and obviously your shorts and bathing suit and all that stuff too.
Yeah, exactly.
Layers too, right? If you can pack layers. Yeah. Things that you can are versatile. So, it's always good to be able to mix and match things, because you're right. You've only got so much space in that suitcase, and you've got to make it last for a while. But if you can kind of layer things up so you can, multi-purpose them, that's my golden rule.
Or you could do like the couple that we met on our British Isles cruise. She brought 5 full-size suitcases for 11 days.
Wow.
5.
That must have been expensive to fly with if she was.
Oh, I'm sure.
What I will say, just to add on to all that, like it's obvious that we all do this for a career, because we were all thinking layering. And what I will say in conjunction with that is that laundry is your friend. So you can pack lighter and use the laundry services that are available to you on the ship, and then that way you only have to say make 4 outfits that you can layer well, like have a windbreaker, but that windbreaker can also be a shell to go over a fleece so that you can make yourself warmer or cooler, because you can add and remove the layers as you go, but then use those laundry services that are on the ship so that you don't have to pack several different outfits for all the different climates. Just pack a few outfits that you can layer well, and then you can manipulate those outfits as the weather shifts, but use the laundry services on board to help out with that so that you can rewear some of those outfits and not have to pack so much.
And it's always nice when somebody's doing your laundry for you, right? No matter what.
Yeah, as a chronic overpacker, I cannot relate to any of that. All right. So our next question, and our last one, unless you guys have some more you're going to drop into the comments for us, comes from Eleanor, and she asks, which lines offer discounts on back-to-backs?
Now, just off the top of my head, I know Celebrity does, and they dictate their pricing on the back-to-backs based on the length of either end of it. So if you are sailing on, say, a 3 to 9 night sailing, then it is $50 US or $60 Canadian off that portion of the sailing. If the sailing is 10 nights or more, then it is $100 US or $120 Canadian. So depending on the sailings that you pair together, then that would be the discount for that. So if you're doing a transatlantic that's, say, 12 nights, and then you pair that with, say, a 7-night Mediterranean cruise, so you would save $120 on the front end of the transatlantic and $60 on the Mediterranean week-long cruise. So combined, you're getting about $180 in savings over those 2 cruises. And then whatever perks are offered on one, they're not transferable over to the other one. So if you have onboard credit and you don't use up your onboard credit on the front half, you can't bankroll that into the second half of your sailing. You have to use it in that first half of the back-to-back. So just any of the perks that usually come with a back-to-back are independent for each sailing. They can't be transferred from one to the other.
Yep.
Excellent. And now what about loyalty with back-to-backs, like loyalty programs and stuff? Is that impacted by back-to-backs? Did they do better with those?
It's just the points, so they can accumulate points faster for their loyalties, especially depending on the room category that they're in. That's a quick way to accumulate points. And sometimes transatlantics are priced lower just because people tend to gravitate to the ones that are more port heavy so that they get to see a lot of destinations. And so sometimes the pricing can come down on the transatlantics because they are those long sailings that are really light on port itineraries. So if you can combine them and you're in a higher category of stateroom for both sailings, you can rack up some points really fast because it's usually based on a per night basis for the loyalty points. So if you're in a higher category of cabin on a long sailing that's priced well because it's a transatlantic, that is one way that you can accumulate loyalty points really quick.
And that's a good point, Matt, because if you look at Royal Caribbean, for instance, if you're in a balcony, it's 1 point per night. And if you move up to a junior suite, which sometimes the price isn't a lot more, but it is a little bit more, you get double points. So on a 14-day cruise, instead of 14 points accumulated, you basically get 28 and so on. And if you're doing a back-to-back and you stay in the same cabin, well, then you multiply that by however many days on both ends. So.
All right. Look at this. We got 27
Excellent.
viewers. Amazing.
Right. Well, I don't see any
I hope
more.
they all commented.
Yes.
I know. Let's hope, because they can win a prize. So last chance to get your comments in there, or last chance for any questions. So, they have, you have 3 amazing travel advisors with a wealth of knowledge here who will answer any of your cruising questions. So take advantage of that.
Yeah. And last week, John Devlin won the hat and I wasn't wearing it. So this week I made sure to put on the hat so that if John was on here, he could see what the hat looked like But of course, he's not watching tonight. So shame on John. I will have to have words with him after because I know him personally. He's actually a friend of my dad's. So I will make sure to have words with him because we are going to be sailing together very soon. So I will make sure to bring that up to him. But hopefully he'll be wearing his hat when I see him.
Excellent. Do you have your water bottle? Do you have your water bottle tonight?
I don't. I have a water bottle from a cruise line that's very handy, but that's about it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to, when you host, I'm gonna have to give you the heads up so you can be properly prepared.
Yes.
And we got a comment saying John is watching, Matt.
Oh, there we go. All right. So there's the hat, John. If you
Oh,
there
yeah,
he
you
is.
just
Yep, there we
commented.
go. Perfect. Well, if I can
All
get my
right.
hands on the hat and it doesn't get mailed out to you already, John, I will bring it with me and then I will deliver it to you personally.
Awesome. Well, our mailing person, Tina, is actually away, so it won't get mailed out right away. So you may just be able to take that with you.
Okay.
All right.
So we're giving away a water bottle today. Is that what I took away from all
We're giving away a water bottle. We are. So we're going to switch over to our giveaway tool. And if it comes up with Vacations for Canadians, then we are going to draw again. So let's see who's lucky tonight.
No whammies, no whammies.
Hey, Catherine!
Congratulations.
She had that great, very long question that we were able to answer. So that's good.
She did. That's great, Catherine. If you can email us just to linda@vacationsforcanadians.com, and I'll put that in the comment section, and we will get your information so that we can send out your prize.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Of course, we are at the 25th of September, which means Azamara is almost over. So before we close this out, I would want to take the quick moment we got to just remind everybody we only have a few days left with Azamara as our featured supplier of the month. So if you have an interest in Azamara, be sure to check out our website. We have a lot of deals posted for Azamara this month that feature some amazing itineraries. And if you haven't seen how incredible Karen is on our latest episode, The Spirits of the Sea, be sure to check it out because she did a fantastic job. And we had a great time making a grasshopper, which was delicious. So be sure to check that out as well. And it touches on some of the different promotions that we have going on with Azamara, just to remind everybody, in case you've forgotten, just what we are offering this month.
Okay, Matt, before you guys all jump off, somebody just commented that they have 2 women worried about our Icon cruise November 2nd. Does anybody have any updates or anything they can share on what's going on with Icon?
So right now it's just one sailing that's been canceled for them to do the maintenance on it. So there was one sailing where they had to skip a port due to the propulsion issues that were going on with it. And then they were taking it right into Miami so that it could have the maintenance done on it. So the messaging that's coming out of Royal Caribbean right now is that they're hoping that it's only going to impact one sailing and that they can address the propulsion issues that are going on with it. Now, if you're sailing on November 2nd, I would say you're pretty safe with your sailing date, that it is not going to be that drawn out of an issue. They were still sailing at that point, but because of the propulsion issues, it was making it difficult to make those journeys, to hit those ports and still complete their itinerary, just because they didn't have the power to get around. So I think you're going to be pretty safe with that. But by the looks of it, from the wording coming out of Royal Caribbean right now, it is just the one sailing that starts in 3 days. So the journey that's on right now, they've had to adjust the ports because of the propulsion issues that are going on with it. The next week, which would start on the 28th, that's the one that got canceled, and everybody's kind of being moved around. So hopefully in that 1 week that they have, because they do 7-day sailings back to back to back, they'll have that 7 days to address the issues that are going on.
They can work magic in a week, I'm sure. They don't want to cancel any more than they have to, right? So then I'm sure you're okay.
especially when it's their flagship right now.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people watching that one.
Amazing. See, you ask our travel experts anything cruising related, and they're there for you.
Yeah, we got that message in bulk when that announcement came out of Royal Caribbean. So we've definitely been tracking that for all future sailings. But from all words coming from Royal Caribbean right now, it is one sailing.
Fantastic. And we're back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Back next week.
See you then.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Well.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.